The board will now come to order. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Balmer. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus.
Present.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderman Aldridge. President Green.
Present.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg.
Present.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Boyd. 11 present. You have quorum.
A quorum being present, we will be led in opening reflection and prayer by Galen Gritz with Indigenous St. Louis Cherokee Nation.
OCO, Dakwadoa, Galen Gritz, Chalasi, Sadalawai, Degegai, St. Louis. Thank you. Hello, my name is Galen Gritz, and I'm a Cherokee from St. Louis. You have probably realized that you need help. We all do, in all things, large or small. If I get on the floor, I need help to get up. Few of us in this room have the towering confidence of a 21-year-old, that we're it, that we are single-handedly going to move mountains. We are more like Sisyphus, rolling a boulder up the top of a mountain, only to wake up the next day to find it at the base of the mountain. And once again, we labor to roll it up. This cycle goes on forever. That is how life seems at times. Native Americans are only 0.5% of Missouri's population. A mere 351 years ago, for 14,000 years prior to that, everyone in this area was Native American. So we know a secret, how to get things done in the modern world when we're so few. We need relationships. We need a community. We need allies. We need to work for the good of others as well as for ourselves. Dear Lord, magnificent Creator, help us in our need. Help us to do your work. This nation faces a challenging new reality. Change is going to have to come from us. Good is going to have to come from us. Please open our eyes and help us all together. Amen.
We will dispense with line item 4, any introduction of honored guests. Alderwoman from the 11th.
Honored guest today is Jessica Trout from St. Louis University. I'm very happy that she is here with us this morning. Earlier this week, I had an event and I was able to spend some time with 4 young men from St. Louis University who were in the process of volunteering. And so it was so nice to have those great conversations with SLU students. Additionally, the coffee is spectacular this morning. I encourage everybody to get a cup and continue with gratitude. Amen.
Alderwoman from the 1st.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Today, I would like to have as my honored guest, my state representative, Steve Butts, who's right behind me on the floor here. Steve, at all, you know, he works tirelessly for his district, for this state, and for other people to make sure that we have plenty of good representation down at the State House. So thank you so much.
Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to do something a little different this morning for my honored guest. Can Mike come from the back room, please? Because what you all don't know is that the reason why you are able to keep up with us down here is because of the work that STLT does with airing, living, streaming, and everything. And today is Mike's last day. So I wanted to make sure that we honor Mike and we thank you for everything that you all do, continue to do, and we wish you Godspeed in your next chapter.
Thank you so much.
Oh. Alderman from the 9th.
Thank you. As my honored guest today, I'd like to have the SLU policy pods who are up here in the gallery with us. Just love to see young students who are here interested in local government, which is really, as we all know, where the government that affects your daily life the most. As our country is going through some turmoil right now, I think this is a great time for us to look at the local level and understand the difference that we can make in people's lives here. So welcome to these wonderful young people, and really excited to have them here.
Alderwoman from the 7th.
Thank you, President Green. I would also like to have Jessica Trout, who is a constituent of the 7th Ward and also the leader of the policy class, and all of the students who are here. I've gotten to work with you all many times throughout the years. They do a big presentation where they actually go to Washington, to DC, and they go to Jefferson City, and they present to legislators on various ideas, and I'm actually going to give you all a shout out by name. Camille Smith, Elizabeth Peterson, Carly Smith, Hayden Clemens, Tarini Galela, Deeksh Gadam, Chavinci Kadila. Hopefully I got all of those right, but thank you so much to all of you all. They have a variety of social policy interests, from criminal justice to sustainability, to global health, to poverty, and so I hope that you all enjoy getting to see our work today, and I hope that you all feel our appreciation for you, and that you consider careers in policy change as you move forward.
Alderman from the 14th. Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I also would love to have our SLU students be also my honor guests. I'm looking forward to jumping in on the Alderwoman from the 7th Ward meeting to be able to talk with you all. So just thank you for being here. I'm so glad to have my good friend and former colleague from the State House, Representative Steve Butts. I've learned so much from you when I was up there in the last 5 years. You are truly a fighter, somebody who was able to cross the aisle to make sure that we always are protecting the city of St. Louis. I know you may have a special connection with the Alderwoman from the 1st, but you also are kind of part of the family over in the 14th. So thank you for being here, and just thank you for all your public service and the work that you do, as well as I would love to have the legendary Elliot Davis, who is with us today as my honored guest. He has been doing this for a very long time when it comes to holding folks, even down at this chamber, accountable, and just making sure that he's also helping so many people who may not have the ability to have a microphone. So always remember, as you know, you paid for it. Thank you.
Any further introduction of honored guests? Any further introduction of honored guests? Seeing none, Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the approval of the minutes from Friday, November 7th, 2024.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we approve the minutes from Thursday, November 7th, 2024.
Is there a second? It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 1st, that we approve the minutes from Friday, November 7th, 2024. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Report of city officials.
Report of city officials can be found in A, B, C, and D of the agenda and has been placed in the Google Drive for your review. Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment to the St. Louis Port Authority. The appointment of Kevin Little, who resides in the 2nd Ward. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Tashara O. Jones, Mayor.
Alderman from the 2nd, you are recognized on Mayor Jones' appointment to the St. Louis Port Authority.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we make the mayor's recommendations to the Port Authority.
Alderwoman from the 12th.
Madam President, members of the board, I'd ask if the alderman from the 2nd would send it to committee, since this is not a a local appointment, but a citywide committee?
I will, Alderwoman. Yes.
Thank you.
So Alderman for the second, would you like to rescind your motion and instead make a motion to send to committee?
Thank you, Madam President. I do rescind my motion.
And make a motion.
And I will make a motion now to send the mayor's appointment to the HUD's committee.
It's been moved by the...
Point of order. I think somebody seconded his motion. I don't know if you heard it or
Yes.
not. So I don't. Okay.
Yes,
So they
it's
may
been...
need to withdraw their second.
I don't think his original motion had a second on it.
Oh, okay.
It has been moved by the alderman from the second, seconded by the alderwoman from the seventh, that we send the mayor's appointment to the St. Louis Port Authority to the HUD's committee. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Park Pacific Community Improvement District: the appointment of Lisa Rayagine and the appointment of William Smith. I respectfully request your appointment. Sincerely, Tashara O. Jones, Mayor.
Alderman from the 14th, you're recognized on Mayor Jones' appointments to the Park Pacific Community Improvement District.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the committee. I will move to adopt the appointments for the Park Pacific Community Improvement.
It's been moved by the alderman from the 14th, seconded by the alderman from the 9th, that we approve Mayor Jones' appointment to the Park Pacific Community Improvement District. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for appointment to the Grove Community Improvement District: the appointment of Josh Smith, who resides in the 9th Ward.
Alderman from the 9th, you're recognized on Mayor Jones' appointment to the Grove Community Improvement District.
Thank you. I would move that we accept the mayor's appointment of Josh Smith to the Grove Community Improvement District.
It's been moved by the alderman from the 9th, seconded by the alderwoman from the 7th, that we approve appointment to the Grove Community Improvement District. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individual for appointment to the 14th and Market Community Improvement District: the appointment of Chris Zimmerman. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Tashara O. Jones, Mayor.
Alderman from the 14th, you are recognized on Mayor Jones' appointment to the 14th and Market Community Improvement District.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move for the appointments of the 14th and Market Community Improvement. Move to adopt the appointments to the 14th and Market Community Improvement District.
It's been moved by the alderman from the 14th, seconded by the alderwoman from the 7th, that we approve Mayor Jones' appointment to the 14th Community Improvement District. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Dear members of the board, I have the pleasure to submit the following individuals for reappointment to the Shoto Avenue Corridor Community Improvement District: the reappointment of Paul Hamilton, the reappointment of Ronald Gorman, the reappointment of William Odell, and the reappointment of Linda Weiner. I respectfully request your approval of this appointment. Sincerely, Tashara O. Jones, Mayor.
Alderman from the 14th, you're recognized on Mayor Jones' appointment to the Shoto Avenue Corridor Community Improvement District.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move to adopt the following appointments to the Shoto Ave Corridor.
It's been moved by the alderman from the 14th, seconded by the alderwoman from the 7th, that we approve Mayor appointments to the Shoto Avenue Corridor Community Improvement District. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
That's the extent of a report of city officials.
Does anyone wish to take any bills or resolutions off of any of our informal calendars? Alderwoman from the 6th.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to move Board Bill 63 off the informal calendar to the perfection calendar.
The regular perfection calendar?
Yes, the regular perfection
Madam
calendar.
Clerk, if you could please make note of that.
So noted.
And then can I move?
Not yet. Okay. Does anyone wish to take any other bills or resolutions off of any of our informal calendars? Seeing none, first reading of board bills.
Board Bill 131, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd, Alderwoman Keys, Alderman Oldenburg, and Alderwoman Spencer. An ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment appropriating a portion of funds received under a settlement agreement stemming from a lawsuit among the city, the Regional Convention and Sports Complex Authority, the Los Angeles Rams, the National Football League, and other parties, authorizing certain expenditures of such funds to the extent received in order to invest in downtown and disinvested neighborhoods in the St. Louis, including North St. Louis and Southeast St. Louis, authorizing contracts and other documents to expend the funds to the extent received, containing a severability and an emergency clause. Board Bill 132, sponsored by Alderman Cone, and ordinance recommended and approved by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, authorizing and directing the Director of Airports and the Comptroller of the City of St. Louis, owner and operator of the St. Louis Lambert International Airport, to enter into and execute the First Amendment to the West and East Substation lease agreement with Union Electric, doing business as Ameren, Missouri, which originally authorized by ordinance number 69920, approved January the 15th, 2015, containing a severability clause. Board Bill 133, sponsored by Alderwoman Schweitzer, an ordinance recommended by the Board of Public Service of the City of St. Louis, establishing multiple works and improvement projects on the Laurel and Waterman Bridge, traffic management enhancement on South Broadway and North Broadway, River de Pere Boulevard, and bus stop upgrades on Grand, Delmar, and Cass within the City of St. Louis, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 134, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, pursuant to ordinance number 68937, the proposed bill authorizing an honorary street name, Pastor C.D. Wells Way, which shall begin at the intersection of Palm and Jefferson Avenue to the intersection of Hebert and Jefferson Avenue. Board Bill 135, sponsored by Alderwoman Sangay, an ordinance to amend Chapter 2.01 of the City of St. Louis Revised Code of Ordinances to include protection for election workers in the City of St. Louis from harassment and threats of violence, containing a clause for severability and emergency clause. That's the extent of first reading of board bills.
Reference to committee of board bills.
The following, to Transportation and Commerce, Board Bill 132, to Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee, Board Bill 133, 134, and to Legislation, Board Bill 135. That's the extent of reference to Committee of Board Bills.
Second reading and report of standing committees.
The following board bills were reported out of HUS Committee with the due pass recommendation. Board Bill 102, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, an ordinance approving a petition of owners of real property seeking the creation and establishment of the downtown North St. Louis CID, finding a public purpose for the creation and establishment of the downtown North St. Louis CID district, containing the severability clause and emergency clause. Board Bill 113, sponsored by Alderman Narayan, Alderwoman Sangay, and Alderman Aldridge. An ordinance recommended by the Planning Commission, amending portion of Ordinance 71730 to provide updates to definition for short-term rental permit and short-term rental unit, amend zoning code 26.08 so that it incorporates the definitions created under the ordinance number 71730, and update zoning code section 26.76 to mirror provisions pertaining to short-term rentals located in single-family A zoning districts that are combined in ordinance number 71729, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 120 as amended, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd, and the following persons co-sponsored: Schweitzer, Browning, Clark, Hubbard, and Aldridge. An ordinance authorizing the Comptroller of the City of St. Louis to execute a contract for sale with certain terms, including the receipt of and in consideration with the sum of $25,000, with contingencies for finance, among others, for Young Voices with Action, a Missouri nonprofit corporation, to purchase certain city-owned property located in City Block 5000, which property is known and numbered as 5937 through 47 Dr. Martin Luther King in the City of St. Louis, Missouri, 63112, containing a severability clause. The following board bills were reported out of Public Infrastructure and Utilities with the due pass recommendation. Board Bill 129, sponsored by Alderwoman Sangay, an ordinance establishing a four-way stop site at the intersection of Clem Street and McCree Avenue in the Botanical Heights neighborhood in the 7th Ward to regulate traffic traveling in all directions, containing an emergency clause. Board Bill 130, sponsored by Alderwoman Sangay, pursuant to ordinance number 70333, as amended by ordinance number 71394, an ordinance directing the Director of Streets to install speed humps on a 4200 block of Folsom Avenue to calm the flow of traffic in the Botanical Heights neighborhood within the 7th Ward, containing an emergency clause. The following board bill was reported out of Health and Human Development with a due pass recommendation. Board Bill 119, Committee Sub, sponsored by Alderwoman Boyd. An ordinance recommended by the Board of Estimate and Apportionment, appropriating to the Department of Health, received by the City of St. Louis pursuant to National Opioid Settlement Agreement, authorizing the expenditure of such funds to the extent received, authorizing contracts and other documents to expend such funds to the extent received, containing an emergency clause. That's the extent of second reading report of standing committees.
Alderman from the 14th, you're recognized on the motion to suspend the rules for the purposes of moving Board Bill 102 to the perfection consent calendar.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, I would like to suspend the rules to move Board Bill 102 to the perfection consent calendar so that this piece of legislation is a SID bill. Since it has to do with property tax, we just want to make sure that we've already talked with the assessor that we can get this done before the end of the year so that the assessment values can be placed on these individual properties.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 14th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we suspend the rules for the purposes of moving Board Bill 102 to the perfection consent calendar. This is a non-debatable motion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Balmer. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Spencer. Thank you. Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge. President Green.
Aye.
Alderman Cone. 14 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion of the Alderman from the 14th. If you could please place Board Bill 102 at the end of the perfection consent calendar.
So noted.
Report of special committees.
We have none.
Board bills for perfection consent.
Board Bill 102, sponsored by Alderman Aldridge, an ordinance approving a petition of owners of real property seeking the creation and establishment of the Downtown North St. Louis Community Improvement District, finding a public purpose for the creation and establishment of the Downtown North St. Louis Community Improvement District, containing a severability clause and an emergency clause.
Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion to adopt the board bills for the perfection consent calendar.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we adopt the board bills for perfection consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we adopt the board bills for the perfection consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Board bills for perfection.
Board Bill 63, sponsored by Alderwoman Velazquez and President Green, an ordinance repealing Section 2 of Ordinance 70259, codified Chapter 3.06.320 of the Revised Code of the City of St. Louis, replacing it with a new section providing for the clerk of the Board of Aldermen to record the Board of Aldermen votes on board bills and non-courtesy resolutions, and requiring those votes be published on the city website, providing for the specific requirements for those records and containing an effective date.
Alderwoman from the 6th, you are recognized on the perfection of Board Bill 63.
Thank you, Madam President. I move to perfect Board Bill 63.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we perfect Board Bill 63. Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. This board bill is, I think, a great step toward transparency and accountability, and it also helps not only our public understand the processes. It basically just digitizes our committee votes, and it's transparent right now. As most of us know, you have to dig through the minutes or go back and watch the videos to find out how people voted in committee. We work closely with the clerk to make sure that this process makes sense and also fits in with implementation. So with that, I think most of you have read the bill, and it passed out unanimously in rules and legislation. So I move to, with that, there's an amendment to update it. So I would like to move to adopt to Amendment 1 that is on your desks. Amendment 1 to Board Bill 63.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we adopt Amendment number 1 to Board Bill number 63. Alderwoman, you may proceed on amendment number 1.
Thank you. This amendment, Madam Clerk, do you want to read Amendment 1? Oh, I'm sorry. I'll read it. It basically it expands in the original bill. It expands what we had to just clarify that if an alderperson is not present at the meeting, the vote will be recorded as is not just as absent, but if an alderperson was not present at the meeting, but not in the meeting room at the time of the vote, and therefore did not cast a vote of any kind, this vote shall be recorded as did not vote, in addition to the aye vote, present, or abstain.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, it's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderman for the 14th, that we adopt amendment number 1 to Board Bill number 3. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alderwoman, you may proceed on Board Bill 63 as amended.
Thank you, Madam President. With that, I ask my colleagues to vote yes on this bill.
You need to now make another motion to perfect Board Bill 63 as amended.
Thank you. I move to perfect Board Bill 63 as amended.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we perfect Board Bill 63 as amended. Any further discussion? Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I just want to thank the Alderwoman for this piece of legislation, and I know she worked with the clerk here with this amendment. I think that this is a simple piece of legislation, like the Alderwoman mentioned, as far as like transparency. So this is very similar to what we do in the State House. When you look at a legislation when it's filed, through every process, you're able to see where members voted on that in committee, throughout committee, onto the floor from perfection to third reading and whatnot. So I think this is just another way for the public to be able to know exactly how the votes are counted in committee, outside of trying to watch YouTube or trying to go back in the journal to see where all the people voted on the committee vote. And with that, I would just like to be added as a co-sponsor to Board Bill 63 as amended.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that, and if you could please make sure that I am still a co-sponsor on the amended bill as well.
So noted.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, it's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 8th.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm pretty short over here, so it's easy. But I just had a procedural question. This is not necessarily anything that is of super significance, but with regards to the difference between absent and not voting, I guess my question would be is if a member of the board had to leave.
Alderwoman from the 8th, are you asking to inquire of the Alderwoman from the 6th?
Thank you, Madam President. Alderwoman from the 6th, would you yield for questions, please?
Yes.
Alderwoman from the 6th, will you yield to questioning from the Alderwoman from the 8th?
Yes, Madam President.
Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. It was more of a rhetorical question, I perceive, but in any case, if we want to get into it, I was just thinking in terms of if a member of the board had to leave expectedly or unexpectedly, or we didn't know that they were here or not here, is there a significant difference between absent and not voting? I suppose if you left the chambers, and it's my understanding that according to our rules, you can't be within the chambers and simply not vote. You would have to present an abstention or a present. And if you leave the chambers, you're technically absent. I guess the question would be, it could muddle a water if a member stepped out in the hallway versus actually leave the building entirely and left the building, and we wouldn't necessarily here within the chambers know if that person was just in the hallway or having left the building. And so I was wondering if there's a significant or substantive difference between absent and not voting, and we need to actually try to parse through that, in which case there could be some muddling of the waters.
Right. Thank you, Alderwoman. So this is actually what this amendment addresses. So if an alderperson is not present at the meeting, this vote shall be recorded as absent. If an alderperson was present at the meeting but not at the time of the vote, and therefore did not cast a vote of any kind, so if not in the meeting room, which would be they were in the hallway or in the bathroom but not in the meeting room, that shall be recorded as does not vote.
Thank you. I understand the amendment and I read through it. I guess the question would be is if a member left and was actually not present and was absent for the rest of the meeting. I was just trying to prevent some muddling, if a person left and we didn't know if they actually left or they came back. To me, there wasn't a substantive difference between absent and having chose not to vote, because if you're in the hallway, you're technically absent from the meeting. But if we're not really worried about having to try to parse through whether a member has left for the rest of the day and is therefore absent for the rest of the meeting, or just not voting, to me, I think it's helpful to record these additional aspects of voting, and I'm really grateful for the transparency here. I was just thinking in terms of adding another layer of potential question that could be called upon later if a member was arguing whether or not they were present or. But if we're comfortable with this, just wanted to bring my initial thoughts to the.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, it's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we perfect Board Bill number 63 as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Report of engrossment.
Board Bill 59, 87, 121, 123, 110 as amended, 111, and 114 as amended.
Third reading and final passage Board Bills consent.
Board Bill 59, 87, 121, 123, 110 as amended, and Board Bill 111.
Alderwoman from the 10th, you're recognized on the motion to adopt the third reading and final passage of Board Bills on the consent calendar.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we adopt the third reading and final passage of Board Bills on the consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderman from the 5th, that we adopt the third reading and final passage of Board Bills on the consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Alderman Oldenburg. Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Alderman Balmer. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Browning. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Alderwoman Keys. Alderwoman Tyus.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderman Aldridge. President Green.
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderman Cone. Alderwoman Sanye. Alderman Aldridge. I'm sorry, I didn't catch that, Alderman.
Aye.
Thank you. 13 aye votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderwoman from the 10th to third read and finally pass the aforementioned bills. Third reading and final passage Board Bills.
Board Bill 114 as amended, sponsored by Alderwoman Sanye, President Green, and Alderman Aldridge. An ordinance amending parts of Chapter 26 by adding new definitions of special residential uses, amending certain uses of special residential uses, regulating special residential uses and site requirements, containing the severability and emergency clause.
Alderwoman from the 7th, you are recognized on the third reading and final passage of Board Bill 114 as amended. Alderwoman from the 7th, you are recognized on the final passage of Board Bill 114 as amended.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. We've had such robust conversation around this bill. I think last week we might have crossed over the 2-hour mark. So just a reminder that Board Bill 114 is a bill that amends the city zoning code pursuant to Chapter 26.
Alderwoman from the 7th, you have to make the motion.
Pass Board Bill 114.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we third reading and final pass Board Bill 114 as amended. Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you. So just a quick recap of the bill, that it proposes an amendment to Chapter 26 that creates a special residential use code. It would allow for special residential uses, or otherwise known as non-traditional forms of housing, which is housing that doesn't require a formal lease or a formal mortgage, and is usually combined with social services. And so you want to think about transitional homes, you want to think about group homes, you want to think about shelters, and it proposes that we allow these things on a conditional basis with the requirement of an operational plan and with some density language. It does not touch plat and petition, and again, it is something that has received wide support from both the President's office, the Mayor's office, the Building Division, the zoning administrators, the Planning Commission, unanimously recommended, including the changes that we made last week. It did go back before the Planning Commission this past Tuesday, and so those amendments that we voted on are now formally incorporated into the bill, and it also was supported by the Director of Human Services. It's been some quiet time since we've been discussing this and having these conversations, and again, I think we've discussed it over and over, but those are the kind of the most simple, basic tenets of the bill, and I look forward to us third and final passage in this today.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 1st.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. With the Alderwoman from the 7th, yield for questions.
The Alderwoman from the 7th yield to questions from the Alderwoman from the 1st.
Yes.
Alderwoman, you may proceed.
Thank you, Alderwoman. As always, thank you for always answering all of my questions. I know I've probably sent, 300 so far through this process? Is that where we're at? Okay. So one of the questions, I sent this over to you, and I just wanted to be able to get your answer kind of on the floor so people can hear. Last week, we made an amendment to your bill to make it so that in zoning districts A and B, single and two zoning districts, that congregate shelters would not be allowed in those two districts with this process. Since then, I've gotten some questions from constituents about how do you differentiate really between a congregate shelter and a single room or other type of occupancy, and just concern that there could be a misuse of this process where something that should be considered a congregate shelter ends up being kind of sneaking in as a single room occupancy, just with lack of clarity in the code. So I just wanted to get your answer to that question in front of the group and the public today.
Yes, thank you for all of your questions, Alderwoman Schweitzer. I think all your questions have been great, and I'm glad to have them on the record. So in regards to the potential of something that is a large congregate shelter making it through as a single room shelter, I think it's really low. I think the first thing you would need to look at is the operational plan component, where they do need to tell us how many people they plan on serving and how long those folks will be staying there. I think that will give us the information right off top. And a lot of the city zoning code and how we do it is based off the amount of people occupying a territory, and that is how you define its use and what their occupancy limits are. And so by them having to give that operational plan and tell us that number up front, they were able to do it. And then I would say, let's say worst case scenario, someone does, is somehow able to sneak through with the passage of this bill, anything that the provider commits to in their operational plan, that can be used to initiate the revocation process if they deny it. And so the building division would be able to send out an inspector and go take a look. And if they find out that they've misrepresented themselves or they've lied, the terms they agree to through their conditional use process or submit an operational plan is not true, they can then be moved for revocation.
Okay, so if someone who's an inspector, walks into a property that was expected to be a single room occupancy shelter in single family A, for example, and they walk in and it's a room and it has multiple people living in it or staying in it rather, and even if there are dividers or curtains or something, you're saying that would not be counted as a single room type shelter by that inspector?
Correct.
Okay.
In our zoning code, we define spaces by the amount of official bedrooms, and so curtains and blinders don't necessarily define it. But again, I think getting that number of how many people they plan to serve in that facility will be the real measure for this process as far as what kind of shelter is defined as.
Because we're in this process kind of depending on the relationship between both the zoning and building codes to work together to make sure that occupancy limits, safety, fire code, all of those things would still be part of what they're looking at.
Correct.
Okay, thank you for my questions. I'm sure if any constituents are watching and they don't feel like we got the answer, tell me. So thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I appreciate all your time. Thank you. I yield.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 12th.
Madam President, members of the board, I rise in opposition to this board bill. I have gotten so many calls from people who watched the board last week, wanting to know why they didn't know more about this was coming up. Also got emails from people, got emails from the head of the Republican Party or something in the city of St. Louis about lack of awareness of what was going on. When I hear the Alderwoman from the 7th talking about how simple it will be to, if somebody is breaking a rule, for that to be prevented and stopped, it's hilarious to me, because right now in the 51 and 5200 blocks of Lotus, we have several illegal boarding houses that have been repeated over and reported over and over and over and over again, and they can't do anything about it. We have places where people have been shooting and for years and years and years, and public safety can't do anything about it. But all of a sudden, we're going to add more things that people can put into your neighborhoods, and all of a sudden, there's going to be a way that we're going to stop this. This doesn't happen. And I can give you an exact example. In 2017, the feds came into North St. Louis and raided and closed down 35 spots where people were doing illegal things at the stores and gas stations. We have been reporting it for years to the city of St. Louis police, and they could not do anything about it. Public safety could not do anything about it. There are members who are on this board right now who have stood up and said how our nuisance ordinance is just a mess and we can't get anything done. So to add more things in a neighborhood and say, oh, it'll be taken care of, is ridiculous, because it took the feds. And once the feds came in and closed these places down, let me just say, they weren't good either, because they let them sit there for 5 years and not do anything until they came in and put in some and did some things with some of the former members of the Board of Aldermen. And then the Fed said that they had done a bribe. And so some of our members went off to jail. We had one go to jail before this happened. Okay. But the point is that nobody does anything about it. So they get in there and we make all these laws that says, oh, it'll be so easy for it to go. And it does not. And people know about them. And in fact, the Board of Adjustment and the conditional use hearing people have been some of the people that have pushed things into North St. Louis. I can't speak to other neighborhoods, but into North St. Louis, when the people who have shown up are the owners and the residents, and they've shown up in bulk to say, I don't want this. And then they bring in a bunch of people that don't live in the neighborhood, but they have black faces, and they say, look what we have here. Well, these people want it. And these people don't live in the neighborhood and don't have a stakeholder. Last week, I talked about who owns something in North St. Louis. And people took that as, oh, I don't have to own it. When you don't own a piece of property and you rent, and I've been a renter for years before I owned, you can get up and move when you get tired of something. You say, okay, but when you pay for a mortgage, and especially a lot in North St. Louis, where your property is not valued at the real rate that it's supposed to be, especially because all of these things that you now want to put more of in neighborhoods are the things that have been pushed over here over the years, then you can't just get up and leave, because you have sunk your life work into it and the money, and then all of a sudden now you are next to something that is a nuisance, and the building division, public safety, police, they can take all the complaints they want, but they don't do anything about it. So for you to sit up here and for me to listen to people say, well, this will be really easy, and this is all what has to happen, and then you can start the revocation process. No, you can't. No, you can't, because they don't do anything. And so next week, I will be bringing forth a list of things that they have not been able to do anything about. And the clear violation of a public nuisance is when you have shootings every month. And we have a place that had a shooting like almost every month in 2023. Nothing could be done. It was right around the corner from a school. The owner's son got killed up in there, and they still couldn't do anything. The people hang around. They've destroyed a full block. Nothing can be done. I wrote letters after letters, and then a policeman, bless his soul, finally wrote a letter and wrote me an email, said, you're absolutely right. This stuff should be closed down, and I'm going to get in trouble for writing that. And sure enough, he was moved right after he put that in writing. So to be so naive or uncaring and to think that this is a great idea because you think of it is just totally ridiculous. I want to know What made somebody think that we're going to change the special residential uses? Special residential uses used to be basically if you had a handicap, physical handicap or mental problem, then you could do special uses. And they didn't tend to be nuisances in the neighborhood. They were a little group home. They had people that lived there. They weren't having shootings. They wasn't doing drugs. They weren't breaking into people's houses. They weren't doing all these things that are associated with a lot of these things. And now you want them all in more. You say, we want more boarding houses. No, people don't. I've never in 30 something years had somebody call me and say, I want more boarding houses. I want more group homes. I want more halfway houses. I want more single room occupancies. I want more substance abuse places. In fact, it has been the exact opposite. They don't want these things. And we seem to not treasure the one thing that we need is the residents who live in the city of St. Louis. As we continue to watch them leave, we come up with the darndest things and wonder why our population is leaving. So it makes me think that there is, again, a political agenda that wants certain people to leave. If you're conservative and white, we don't want you to be in our city because you don't agree with us. If you're Black people who live over in North St. Louis, maybe we don't want you because you're saying this is not okay. We're telling you what's good for you when it's not good. It's not happened. And even when you were sponsoring these bills, we standing there saying, we know they pushed everything into North St. Louis. If it was such a good thing, why did they push them only into North St. Louis? Why was homeless shelters pushed into North St. Louis? Why was it closed down in downtown at Larry Rice's place? If it was so great, why didn't we put money into making sure that Larry Rice's place stayed open so that we could have kept it someplace that was already downtown way before they gentrified it, way before they spent billions and billions of dollars downtown. You pushed it out into neighborhoods and we saw the effect immediately. But somebody comes along later, somebody who doesn't own a house, somebody who does not own property in North St. Louis, and tells people in North St. Louis this is a great idea. Tells people in Southwest, because I heard a lot from Southwest St. Louis too saying, we don't like this, it's making me nervous. I heard from Southeast St. Louis saying, thank you for saying no. We don't know why they're pushing this right now. And I can't give them an answer because I have not been able to understand why you could stand there and say how easy it would be to close things down when we have example after example after example that once you get it there, it's so hard to get rid of service. And all across the United States, once you get civil service, it's hard to get rid of them. And that's a big joke because you have to go through some steps, but you can get rid of them. But the nuisances that happen in North St. Louis, even when you close them down, and I know the alderwoman from the 13th, she and I have shared a tire shop on Union. It's been part of the time it was in the 1st, then it was in the 27th, then it was in the 1st, it's back in the 27th. They come right back and open it back up. They lose records about it. They move them to another ward and then they eradicate the records and say, oh, we don't have those records. Unfortunately for them, because I represent a lot of the community that was the 20th ward, I've been able to pull back up records and say, why don't you have these records? Well, we don't keep them after a certain time. Why don't you keep them after a certain time? So the stance that this is going to be all right and it'll be great for everybody is just not true. And I don't understand why we don't value the people who have stayed in our city. A lot of them don't get tax abatement. I'm talking North and South. They pay their taxes. They want to come home and have quiet enjoyment of property. They want to go to their houses and not have to worry about noise and nuisance and people breaking in their houses. Why we push these kind of things? And then if you talk about, well, we've closed the workhouse, how about putting something there? Oh, no, we can't put that there. That's too far away. So there's a whole nother agenda. Reminds me of, I do low income and moderate income housing. And always bothered me because they would always push, you got to have a dishwasher in the houses. The houses were good, past everything. But I didn't get a dishwasher until about 20 years ago when me and my husband rehabbed our kitchen and put one in. But to have quality housing, you don't have to have a dishwasher, but that was some hip woke person that said, oh, well, you should have a dishwasher. I understood heating. I understood air conditioning. That's something I always argued and said St. Louis is too hard. But I never understood why they had to have a dishwasher. And I don't understand why people think that homeless shelters and all these other things that's under this new special use have to be up in the middle of neighborhoods. And the whole point of zoning in the first place is so that they were not. And to come along after people have lived for a long time and relied on the zoning code and change it is unfair to the people who have spent their life savings trying to get someplace the best they could where they would not have to deal with this. And it is not going to be better. It's not going to be okay. It's going to be the same thing that we couldn't fix it. And it's why we keep doing short-term rental, and we fixed term rental, quote unquote, happened. Talked a lot about what was going to happen because, first of all, we overbuilt downtown. We took money that should have been in North St. Louis and we built this stuff downtown. And then people were trying to rent out their properties and they did it at quick expense. And this was the easiest thing to do. And nobody said, hey, wait a minute. We should slow this down. Now everybody's like, oh my God, it's downtown, short-term rental, it's hurting downtown. It's hurting downtown because nobody listened. So it's going to be the same thing for North St. Louis, except for some of us, the three of us that represent and live and actually own property and live in our houses in North St. Louis have said no for a reason. And for this to be pushed and to say that how great this will be is just not true. And this whole thing of changing what a special residential use is not in the best interest. And I am going to go to the planning commissions. In fact, I have a planning commissioner that sits on there now. And I want to find out why they thought that was a good idea. I'm married to a city planner. Doesn't think that's a good idea. Knows what we deal with every day across the street from our house because somebody from Board of Public Service pushed it down into our neighborhood and said, well, it's got to be someplace. So it's never made any sense. It never made any sense how come they're not pushing a Home Depot or Menards or a sit-down restaurant or all the multitude of things that I've heard people want, but you push into something that will do nothing but hurt our community and make more people leave. And that's what's going to happen. And I remain adamantly opposed to this, and I'll request a roll call.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing none, Alderwoman from the 7th, you're recognized to close.
Okay.
As a point of clarification, roll call is required per our rule. Final passage of all board bills. Alderwoman from the 7th, you may proceed.
Thank you so much. I really just want to spend my closing really thanking all of my colleagues, thanking the mayor's office, thanking the president's office. It's been, I've had the opportunity to go to, I've offered for 6 to 8 weeks, hey, anywhere you all want me to go to come, because I absolutely agree that community engagement and having this conversation with as many people as possible is important, and was able to visit many, many neighborhoods across the city and have many conversations, and was able to do just a lot of collaboration. Something that I think is really important that all my colleagues will find in your draft is a statement from Dr. Pearson, where he talks about that right now the average person waiting for any form of community housing waits for about 776 days, which is well over a year and almost into the 2-year mark. He also talks about the average time that someone spends waiting on emergency housing is about 246 days. And he also talks about how last month we turned away about 400 individuals who were seeking emergency shelter and other community housing options, but had to be turned away because we don't have the space or the facility with them. And so the goal of this legislation is to the folks in our community, and we know that there are many of them in our community, whether you want to talk about the fact that St. Louis Public Schools, that is an 80% Black district, at least 1 in 5 of those families are housing insecure, or if you want to talk about the fact that in the city of St. Louis, Black people are 4 times as more likely to be unhoused. We know that this is an issue in our city that does have both a racial and class impact. And so Board Bill 114 proposes an idea, hey, we will leave plan petition in place, we will require operational plans, we will set specific site requirements, we will add in density language that says you can't have more than 2 on one special residential block, and they can't be within 500 feet within each other to address all of these concerns that have been mentioned. And so I'm really grateful for this bill and all the collaboration that has taken place. And I certainly want to make sure that I thank Chelsea Murder, who is my legislative assistant. We've been in so many meetings. We've been all across the city. I think we were looking at our calendars and saying that we've probably spent well over 200 hours on this piece of legislation alone, amongst everything else. And so I really want to make sure that I just thank you for being such a trooper. Thank you for being, such an ally. Thank you for every amendment conversation, every meeting that needs to be had. And just to the community and to the city, even to our young students who are working here, if you get any form of political power, I hope that you think about how you can help those who are vulnerable amongst you. If you get any form of political power, I hope that you will use that position to push back against stigmas. The idea that every unhoused person has a drug problem or that they are suffering from a chronic mental health issue is a false. The data tells us that the fastest increasing group for unhoused is actually senior citizens because Social Security is a set amount, but the cost of everything else is rising. Most women who are unhoused are fleeing domestic violence relationships. A lot of men who are unhoused have been in the war and have served their country and are dealing with PTSD and other issues. And so I hope to our city and to our residents, and certainly to this notion that there's no one in our city that wants this, if you guys are able to go back and watch our HUD's committee hearing, which is where a lot of the work takes place, the entire last hour of the committee was spent with testimony and support from both renters and homeowners. So I hope you all know that those binaries don't exist, that there are a lot of people who are homeowners and who are housed, and they want to see other human beings in their city be housed. And so with that, I just again want to close out by thanking everyone for all of the collaboration, for the ability to work on this bill, and I renew my motion for third and final passage of Board Bill 114.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th, that we third read and finally pass Board Bill 114 as amended. Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Alderwoman Schweitzer. Aye. Alderman Oldenburg.
No.
Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan. Aye. Alderman Balmer. Alderwoman Velazquez. Alderwoman Sanye. Aye. Alderwoman Spencer. Alderman Browning. Aye. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard. Aye. Alderwoman Keys. No. Alderwoman Tyus.
No.
Alderwoman Boyd.
No.
Alderman Aldridge.
Aye.
President Green.
Aye.
Alderman Cone. 9 aye votes and 5 no votes.
By your vote, you sustain the motion from the Alderwoman from the 7th to third read and finally pass Board Bill 114 as amended. Reported the finally passed and signed by the President.
Board Bill 59, 87, 121, 123, 110 as amended, 111, and 114.
All other business being suspended, the President shall in open session affix her signature hereto to the end that these may become law. First reading of resolutions in reference to committee.
Resolution 186, sponsored by Alderman Narayan. Cell site simulator surveillance use plan authorization.
Alderman from the 4th, you're recognized on the first reading resolution number 186.
Thank you, Madam President. Board, I move that we send Resolution 186 to Public Safety.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 1st, that we send Resolution number 186 to the Public Safety Committee. Is there any discussion? Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the committee, or members of the board. I do that too much. Will the Alderman from the 4th yield for questions?
The Alderman from the 4th yields questioning from the Alderman from the 14th.
Absolutely.
Alderman from the 14th, you may proceed.
Thank you, Madam President. So, Alderman, these resolutions, I see you have several. That's coming from Board Bill, I think, 185, the surveillance use oversight bill that we passed last year out of public safety, correct?
Correct.
And out of all of these will be surveillance use plans that the department will come in front of public safety to explain what they're doing with the technology, how they're using the technology, and how it would need to be deployed and other things as well, correct?
Exactly.
In that piece of legislation, it stated that, so this is just the resolution, this isn't the actual surveillance use plan, but the legislation states that the surveillance use plan has to be posted for 21 days before the committee can take it up, just for the public notice so that they know exactly when these use plans will be posted. Are you aware of the date that these use plans will be posted so that that 21-day mark can start to count down?
I'm not sure on the exact date. So basically the way it's going to work is, we're first reading this, sending this to committee, then the administration will post the plans, and then as soon as they post the plans, that clock starts. And certainly I will, both in public safety and at a full board meeting, let folks know that plan is there so that people do have a chance to review it before we have that hearing on the various use plans.
Gotcha. I appreciate that because it's just important as we are going to be posting these plans, at least so the public knows exactly when they are posted so that, they don't end up noticing the plan 15 days or 10 days in. So whenever, and I'm sure you will, you've continued to alert committee members, whenever you get intel from the police department that these plans are posted, but also make a request that you let public safety committee members know so that we can get the word out that these plans are posted so residents can start to look at these plans before we have the committee discussion.
Happy to do that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 1st, that we send Resolution 186 to the Public Safety Committee. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman from the 4th, you're recognized on the first reading Resolution 187.
Resolution 187, sponsored by Alderman Narayan, mugshot recognition surveillance use plan authorization.
Alderman from the 4th, you're recognized on the first reading Resolution 187.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, I move that we refer Resolution 187 to Public Safety.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we send Resolution 187 to the Public Safety Committee. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman from the 4th, you're recognized on the first reading Resolution 188.
Resolution 188, sponsored by Alderman Narayan, forensic hardware and software use plan authorization.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we refer Resolution 188 to Public Safety.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we send Resolution 188 to the Public Safety Committee. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alderman from the 4th, you are recognized on the first reading Resolution number 189.
Resolution 189, sponsored by Alderman Narayan, sound thinking technology use plan authorization.
Alderman from the 4th, you are recognized on the first reading Resolution 189.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we refer Resolution 189 to Public Safety.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we send Resolution 189 to the Public Safety Committee. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 190, sponsored by Alderman Narayan, citywide cameras use plan authorization.
Alderman from the 4th, you're recognized on the first reading Resolution 190.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we refer Resolution 190 to Public Safety.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 1st, that we send Resolution 190 to the Public Safety Committee. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 191, sponsored by Alderman Narayan, GPS technology use plan authorization.
Alderman from the 4th, you're recognized on the first reading Resolution 191.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we refer Resolution 191 to
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderman from the 14th. Then Resolution 191 to the Public Safety Committee. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 192, sponsored by Alderman Narayan, automated license plate reader surveillance use plan authorization.
Alderman from the 4th, you're recognized on the first reading Resolution 192.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we refer Resolution 192 to Public Safety.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 1st, that we send Resolution 192 to the Public Safety Committee. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 193, sponsored by Alderman Narayan, body-worn camera and in-car camera use plan authorization.
Alderman from the 4th, you are recognized in the first reading Resolution number 193.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. Last but not least, I move that we refer Resolution 193 to Public Safety. Thank you for your patience.
It's been moved by the Alderman from the 4th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 1st, that we send Resolution 193 to the Public Safety Committee. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Resolution 194, sponsored by Alderwoman Tyus, Homer G. Phillips Senior Center Maintenance.
Alderwoman from the 12th, you are recognized in the first reading Resolution 194.
Madam President, members of the board, I'd ask that the resolution be read, please.
Madam Clerk, if you could please read Resolution 194.
Resolution 194, Homer G. Phillips Senior Center Maintenance. Whereas by ordinance number 64565, this Board of Aldermen approved in part a lease agreement for 99 years with WAT Dignity Corporation to create 257-unit multiple-family residential development for low-income persons with preference for elderly persons at the premises located at the site of Whittier and Kennerly Streets. And whereas by ordinance number 64913, this board approved in part an amended and restated lease agreement for new tenant Homer G. Phillips Dignity House, LP, for 99 years for an aggregate of $4,950,000 to operate a multifamily residential development primarily for low-income persons with a preference for elderly persons, approximately 2,500 square feet of commercial rental space in portions of the premises at the premises located at the Whittier and Kennerly Streets, and the objection is to maintain the premises in good condition and repair that benefits the landlord and residents of the city of St. Louis. And whereas by ordinance number 68941, this board amend the rental payment agreement for the tenant to pay landlord city a total base rent of $4,950,000 payable in arrears on the last day of each lease year during the term hereof in equal annual installments of $50,000. And whereas a lease agreement year began defined as 12 consecutive calendar months commencing on January the 1st, 2020, with certain adjustments and with the intent to defer ground lease payments to minimize the need for rent increase, to allow the property to cover operational costs and to maintain a high level of service for the senior residents, and to ensure such. The leasee agreed to forego any distributions of cash flow and to submit annually, no later than June 30th of each year, audited financial statements showing the leasee has received no such distributions to said board and to SLDC. Whereas, As of June 30th, 2024, this honorable board has not received audit financial statements showing the leasing has not received ground lease payments. And whereas this sponsor or resolution, along with the comptroller and the mayor, have heard from a multitude of residents of Homer G. Phillips Senior Apartment regarding conditions at Homer G. Phillips Senior Apartment. Said complaints seem to indicate that the premises may not meet the standard of good condition and repair. Whereas there has been a request to the Building Division in the summer of 2024 to visit and analyze the condition complained by the residents and to make findings as to whether the condition of Homer G. Phillips Senior Apartments has currently met the standard of good condition and repair. Now therefore be it resolved by this board, call upon the leasee to immediately submit any and all audit financial statements for the years 2020 through 2024, showing the leasee has received no such distribution to said board and to SLDC. Be it further resolved, this board calls upon the Building Division to complete such inspection and analysis of the condition of Homer G. Phillips Senior Building finding in the next 7 days and release said findings to the Board of Aldermen. Once such findings are made available to the Building Division, if such findings do not meet the standard of good condition and repair to maintain a high level of service to its senior residents, this board, with any needed assistance from the Mayor and Comptroller's Office, will further investigate and take any and all required actions to remedy same in lawful manner. Introduced this 15th day of November, 2024, the Honorable Sharon Tyus, Alderwoman of the 12th Ward.
Madam President, members of the board, the Alderwoman from the 13th had asked that her name be added. And I'd ask that this resolution be sent to public safety also.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 12th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 1st, that resolution number 194 is sent to the Public Safety Committee. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Aye. Motion carries.
That's the extent of first reading resolutions in reference to committee.
Second reading resolutions, committee reports and adoptions.
We have none.
We can dispense with line item 21. Courtesy resolutions. Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized in the motion to adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, I move that we adopt the courtesy resolutions consent calendar.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar. Is there any discussion? Alderman from the 14th.
Thank you, Madam President. Members of the board, I'd like to be added as a co-sponsor to resolution number 185.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Alderwoman from the 12th.
That is my request also, that I be added as a co-sponsor. And I hope we can address Ms. Moore, who had been a longtime committee person in the second ward.
Madam Clerk, if you could please add the Alderwoman from the 12th to resolution 185. Alderwoman from the 10th, if we could add Alderwoman from the 10th to resolution 185 as well, and if you could also add me to resolution 185. Alderwoman from the 6th.
I move that we make resolution 185 in bank.
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we make resolution 185 in bank. Is there any discussion? Alderwoman from the, I'm not sure if the 12th or the 13th had their hand up first. Alderwoman from the 12th, I'll go to you first.
I'm sorry, I had left my hand up, so I will yield to the Alderwoman from the 13th who has not spoken.
Alderwoman from the 13th. I think she might be frozen.
Okay. Well, then, if you don't mind, I'll speak. Oh, she's unfrozen.
Alderwoman from the 13th. She moved for a second there. We'll go back to the, oh, is she there, Alderwoman from the 13th?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Now we lost you again.
Did you hear me?
No.
Oh my God. Let the Alderwoman from the 12th. Did you hear that?
Sorry, Alderwoman, we are only getting every few words that you are saying.
That's okay. The Alderwoman from the 12th, she can speak.
Alderwoman from the 12th.
Thank you, Madam Madam President, and members of the board. Sometimes you don't know why you're in a place. In January, I got to see Maddie Moore. My neighbor across the street, Dolly Townsend, had a 90th birthday, and we went over to Chippewa to the senior building that's right down the street from Ted Drew's. And while we were there, we had a birthday party with her family and presented a resolution from the city. And while we were there, I saw a lady that looked so familiar to me. And we were sitting at the table with her. And I said, "Oh, you look so familiar." She says, "I know you, Sharon Tyus." And she said, "I'm Maddie Moore." And I was so glad to see her, and we got to talk, and we got to hug. And I was surprised that she was in the senior building. She was in a wheelchair. But I got to spend one last time speaking to Maddie. I've known Maddie for 30-something years in a political manner. And as I said, she was this longtime committee woman of the 2nd Ward. She was the chair of the St. Louis Democratic Central Committee. And she was an active person in a lot of things throughout the city. She worked for Clara McCaskill. She was very, very proud of her relationship with the former U.S. Senator. And so it is with great sadness that I learned of her passing, and just wanted to say what a great, wonderful person she was. And she will be sorely missed in this city. And to her family and to her friends, I extend condolences.
Any further discussion? Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the board. So I met Maddie in my early 20s as a young homeowner, wife, and mother. The Honorable Committee Woman Myrtle French lived across the street from me. And it was through her that she introduced me to Maddie. And as the years went past, you know, we would come in contact with each other off and on. And so when I became a committee woman, probably, I don't even remember what year it was, but when I became a committee woman, Maddie was the first person to welcome me and give me a handbook on that day. And that was just who she was. She was that kind of person that really believed in community. She really believed in being there for people in a lot of unexpected ways. And so I am truly honored that Pauletta Crowley, her sister cousin, and her niece Tony Goodman reached out to me about doing this resolution for her. You know, you don't have many people like a Maddie Moore to pass through your life, but I am truly eternally grateful for the indelible mark she has left on our city, that she's left at every level of government that she has worked in, for her family, State Representative Marlon Anderson. You know, this was an aunt to him, and my condolences go out to all who loved her family, friends, community, and I thank God for Maddie. Thank you.
Thank you. We do still have the motion to embank on the table. I would like to finish that motion, and then we can continue taking comment on the resolution. But if there's no more comment on the motion to embank, then it has been moved by the Alderwoman from the 6th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 7th, that we embank resolution 185. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And Madam Comptroller, you are now recognized on resolution 185.
Thank you. I wanted to add my condolences to the family of Maddie Moore, who was the first African-American female, I believe, that was the state party vice chair person for the state Missouri Democratic Party. And I worked with her very closely in that role, as well as when I became the next African-American female vice chairman of the state Democratic Party. Manny Moore, as you've heard, was very, very active in political issues, events. She worked tirelessly for the party as well as working tirelessly for our U.S. Senator Claire McCaskill. I salute all of the work that Maddie has done, all of her political activism that she shared throughout her years here on earth. And may God continue to bless her and her family. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I just wanted to stand and echo in the prayers, condolences, and thank Alderwoman Keys for bringing this resolution forward. I had a little bit of a different relationship with Ms. Moore. Prior to me getting into politics, one of the salons that I owned was next to Claire McCaskill's office. And when I got into running and everything, her and I'm glad to see and excited to see Comptroller Green here. They were two of the ladies that I saw right in my direct circle again because I would see Ms. Moore daily and at work, and they really encouraged me, even not also in words but in their actions, which makes the difference. A lot of times in politics, people talk a lot, but they don't do a lot. Their actions don't show and reflect their works. And I will say about Ms. Moore, I remember one of the meetings she had at the church off of Riverview, I think one time, right out the Riverview Circle in the church basement. And I was just so in awe of how she led their entire Democratic caucus and how we all sat there and she shepherded us into some great work at that time that the Democratic caucus was doing. So again, I would have been remiss if I didn't rise in honor of Maddie Moore. And I was just reflecting because even though I had lost touch with her in the years, one thing she always did was commented on Facebook to me. And so when I looked back in my, what is it called? Not the Facebook page, but the other page that goes with Facebook. I forgot it. Messenger. Thank you, Alderwoman Keys. When I go back in Messenger, there's so many messages and comments from her. I wish I would have commented back at this time, but you know that happens, and such is life when you always reflect back and wish you could have did more, said more, and more importantly, thanked her more. So again, I stand in support. Thank you again, Alderwoman Keys, in honor to the family. And if there's anything that I can do to support your honor, your memory to the family, please let me know. Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 6th.
Thank you, Madam President. I also want to thank my colleague from the 11th for bringing this resolution. It had been some time since I'd seen Ms. Moore, but I know that I met her some years ago. She'd always been a supporter of the Latino community in many community events and had a presence about her and a warm smile, and I was very sad to hear of her passing. But just want to thank the Alderwoman and just honor her presence, and I'm glad that we could do this to honor her memory.
Any further discussion? Any further discussion? It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we adopt the courtesy resolution consent calendar. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Miscellaneous and unfinished business.
We have none.
We can dispense with line item 23, announcements.
Monday, November the 18th, 2024, Committee of the Whole will have a meeting in the Kennedy Room at 5:30 p.m. Tuesday, November 19th, 2024, HUDs will have a committee hearing in the Kennedy Room at 11 a.m. Wednesday, November the 20th, 2024, Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee will have a hearing in the Kennedy Room at 3:30 p.m. Thursday, November 21st, 2024, Health and Human Development will have a hearing via webinar at 9 a.m. Friday, November 22nd, 2024, full board meeting in the chambers at 10 a.m. That's the extent of the announcements.
Any further announcements? Alderwoman from the 10th.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I would like to announce that during our, and I'm saying it up early, another lengthy HUD's meeting on this Tuesday at 11 a.m. We will take up Alderman Oldenburg's appointment, as well as I was going to send an email, but since she's here, I was able to personally invite her, and she accepted a report about ARPA spending, ARPA funding around Board Bill 26 from our Comptroller, Darlene Green. Thank you.
Alderwoman from the 1st.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I just want to note that there will be a Public Infrastructure and Utilities Committee meeting Wednesday, November 20th at 3:30 p.m. in the Kennedy Room.
Madam Clerk, please make note of that. Alderwoman from the 11th.
Thank you. I just want to remind members of the public that there still is an opportunity to weigh in on CDA, Community Development Administration, home ARP allocation plan. So the public comment, I think, closes on written comments. I want to be clear. Written comments will be accepted until November 22nd. So the public still has an opportunity to weigh in. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Any further announcements? Madam Comptroller?
I wouldn't say this is an announcement, but I wanted to say thank you to Alderwoman Tyus for bringing forth Resolution 194, and I am hopeful that other alders will join. Thank you.
Any further announcements? Seeing none, Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to excuse.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we excuse the alderman from the 3rd for necessary absence.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th, that we excuse the Alderperson from the 3rd for necessary absence. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Alderwoman from the 10th, you are recognized on the motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Madam President, members of the board. I move that we adjourn until Friday, November 22nd, 2024, in the Board of Aldermen chamber.
Is there a second? Second. It's been moved by the Alderwoman from the 10th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 11th. Y'all just want to stay here all day, I think, that we adjourn until November 22nd, 2024. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Motion carries. We are adjourned.